the reception of the SAIYAN. The elegant, brass-trimmed double doors of the newly rebuilt Hazbin Hotel didn't merely open. They were violently blown off their hinges by a sudden, localized implosion of reality. The main lobby, usually a sanctuary of high-gloss crimson carpets, polished mahogany pillars, and the soft, ambient hum of jazz music, was instantly flooded with a blinding, crackling vortex of violet interdimensional energy. The sheer density of the foreign spatial pressure caused the delicate crystal chandeliers hanging from the high ceiling to rattle violently, their glass droplets chiming like a frantic alarm system. Charlie Morningstar, who had been enthusiastically organizing a stack of colorful rehabilitation brochures at the front desk, let out a sharp gasp, her demonic horns briefly flaring as her protective instincts kicked in. Beside her, Vaggie instantly dropped into a low, lethal combat stance, her silver angelic spear materializing in her grip with a sharp, metallic hum, its tip pointed directly at the center of the swirling cosmic storm. From the couch, Angel Dust didn't even look up from painting his claws, merely shifting two of his forearms to shield his face from the sudden gust of sulphurous wind. "Oh, great," he muttered, his voice dripping with characteristic New York sarcasm. "Another resident arriving via property damage. I hope this one actually pays rent in cash and not in existential dread." As the violent violet vortex rapidly condensed into a single, highly compressed point of light, it suddenly snapped out of existence with a crisp, vacuum-like pop. Standing in the exact center of the scorched red carpet was a tall, exceptionally muscular human man who looked completely out of place among the hyper-stylized, sharp-edged denizens of the Pride Ring. He wore a vibrant, eye-catching orange martial arts gi over a dark blue undershirt, with heavy black combat boots firmly planted on the floor. His spiky, thick black hair seemed to defy gravity, casting sharp, defined shadows across a face that currently wore an expression of pure, childlike bewilderment rather than terror. Son Goku blinked, shaking his head slightly to clear the residual spatial static from his ears before looking around the lavishly decorated hotel lobby. He scratched the back of his neck with a massive, calloused hand, a sheepish, innocent grin breaking across his face. "Huh, well, this definitely doesn't look like King Kai's planet," Goku said aloud, his voice rich and cheerful, completely devoid of the malicious intent usually carried by incoming entities. "I was just practicing my instant transmission with a warp token Bulma gave me, and then the sky just broke. Hey there, sorry about your doors, my hand kind of slipped on the controls." Charlie's defensive posture instantly melted into a state of pure, hyperactive hospitality, her wide eyes sparkling with the overwhelming joy of encountering a potential new candidate for redemption. She practically slid over the reception desk, her long blonde hair flowing behind her as she approached the giant stranger with her hands clasped tightly together. "Oh, don't worry about the doors at all. We can totally fix those with a bit of magic." Charlie beamed, her voice a rapid-fire torrent of absolute optimism. "Welcome to the Hazbin Hotel. I'm Charlie, the Princess of Hell, and this is a safe space designed entirely to help lost souls find their inner light, purge their sins, and eventually ascend to the beautiful gates of heaven. Are you a newly deceased sinner? What kind of terrible, soul-crushing crimes did you commit to land down here in the lower rings? Don't be shy, we embrace all kinds of tragic backstories here." Goku's grin faltered slightly, his dark eyes blinking in pure confusion as he tried to process the concept of being dead again, especially since he could still feel the warm, heavy thrum of his living pulse vibrating through his chest. Deceased? No, I'm pretty sure I'm still alive. And I haven't really done any crimes, unless you count that one time I accidentally ate an entire village's supply of giant fish before a tournament. Is this place an apartment or a training hall?" Before Charlie could unpack the logistical nightmare of a living human accidentally teleporting into the absolute center of the afterlife, a tall, terrifyingly elegant silhouette stepped out from the deep shadows of the fireplace corner. It was Alastor, the radio demon, his crimson pinstriped suit perfectly tailored, his sharp, toothy grin stretched across his face with a static-laced intensity that made the surrounding air vibrate with a low, old-fashioned radio hum. He walked with a rhythmic, theatrical stride, his microphoned cane tapping lightly against the carpet with a sound that echoed like a metronome. "Well, well, well, what a delightfully delicious anomaly we have here," Alastor chimed, his voice carrying the distinct, filtered crackle of a 1930s broadcast, complete with the distant sound of recorded studio laughter echoing in the background. A living, breathing mortal flesh vessel wandering through the corridors of damnation without a single scratch on his soul. Tell me, my athletic friend, what sort of magnificent cosmic ledger did you manipulate to achieve such a state? Your internal spiritual energy. Oh, it hums with the most fascinating, world-shaking frequency. Alastor leaned in close, his crimson eyes narrowing into glowing radio dials as he analyzed Goku's massive Kai signature, his grin widening with a dangerous, deeply intrigued amusement. The radio demonesque gambit. The atmospheric tension inside the hotel lobby shifted instantly from chaotic hospitality to a cold, predatory focus the moment Alastor stepped into the light. Vaggi's grip on her angelic spear tightened so hard her knuckles turned white, her single eye darting between the unpredictable radio demon and the oblivious human guest. "Alastor, stay back," Vaggi warned, her voice low and sharp like a razor blade. "We don't know what he is or how he got through the extermination barriers. He could be a spy sent by the angelic legions, or something much worse." Goku, however, didn't show a single shred of fear. Instead, his warrior instincts, honed by decades of fighting gods and monsters across the universe, instantly picked up on the immense, dark, liquid-cold reservoir of power hidden beneath Alastor's polite, dapper exterior. Goku's posture relaxed into a casual yet perfectly balanced stance, his dark eyes locking onto Alastor with a sudden, intense curiosity. "Wow," Goku muttered, a genuine smile breaking across his face. "You're pretty strong, aren't you? Your energy feels really strange, like a deep, heavy swamp full of old ghosts. It's totally different from the Kai I'm used to, but it's definitely huge. Want to spar for a bit?" Alastor let out a sharp, static-laced laugh that sounded like a sweeping radio dial catching multiple stations at once, the sound of an orchestral brass section swelling in the background air. "A spar? Oh, my dear, uninitiated mortal, you have absolutely no conception of the theatrical horrors you are inviting into your reality." Alastor spun his microphone cane with a flawless, hypnotic flourish, resting it against his shoulder as his shadow on the wall began to lengthen, its eyes glowing with a malicious, independent life. "However, I must admit the local political climate in the Pride Ring has been dreadfully boring lately. The overlords are hiding in their corporate towers, the sinners are weeping over their broken contracts, and the hotel... Well, the hotel is severely lacking in quality entertainment. Charlie, my darling, if we want to truly test the spiritual fortitude of our residents, we must introduce a catalyst of absolute, unyielding conflict." Charlie shook her head frantically, her hands waving in protest. "No, no, no. Alastor, we are a place of peace and rehabilitation. We don't do blood sports in the lobby. We're supposed to be singing songs about friendship and emotional breakthroughs today." Alastor ignored her entirely, his smile twisting into an expression of manic, calculated genius as he stepped toward the center of the room, his voice amplifying until it echoed through the entire structural foundation of the building like an emergency broadcast. "Ladies and gentlemen, sinners and demons of all descriptions, welcome to the inaugural Hazbin Arena battle." With a violent slam of his microphone cane against the floor, a massive wave of neon pink and emerald green dark magic erupted from the brass tip, rolling across the room like a physical shockwave. The luxury furniture, the couches, the velvet chairs, the front reception desk, instantly dissolved into columns of green smoke, folding mechanically into the walls. The crimson carpet peeled away, revealing a pristine, high-gloss neon-punk grid floor that stretched from wall to wall, pulsing with a volatile, rhythmic electronic light. Massive, translucent magical barriers of deep violet energy erupted along the perimeter of the room, sealing Vaggi, Charlie, and Angel Dust behind an impenetrable, high-velocity spectator shield. The hotel lobby had been completely formatted into a flawless, high-stakes combat arena, and Goku was standing directly in the center of the target zone. Angel Dust's gauntlet. "Hey, what the hell smiles?" Angel Dust yelled from behind the violet magic barrier, his four upper arms slamming against the translucent energy wall in frustration, though his lower arms quickly adjusted his pink-striped coat. "I was in the middle of a perfect manicure, and now you've turned the living room into a laser tag arena." If my favorite plush cushion gets vaporized during this little stunt, I'm billing your radio station for the damages." Despite his complaints, Angel's multifaceted eyes were fixed on Goku's muscular frame with a mixture of intense curiosity and standard underwoe. RLD cynicism. From the other side of the barrier, Alastor chuckled, his voice echoing from hidden spatial speakers. "Oh, do not despair, my theatrical friend. In fact, to ensure our guest receives a proper welcome to the underworld, you shall be the first to test his capabilities. Consider it a mandatory team-building exercise for the hotel's rehabilitation program." Before Angel could utter a single word of protest, a localized surge of Alastor's green magic snapped around his waist, physically pulling him through the barrier and dropping him onto the neon punk grid directly across from the Saiyan. Angel Dust groaned, dusting off his shoulders as he realized there was no escaping the situation. His expression shifted instantly from annoyed resident to a sharp, street-smart combatant born from decades of surviving the brutal gang wars of hell. He reached into his coat with all four upper arms, smoothly drawing a synchronized quartet of sleek, pink-accented submachine guns, their barrels gleaming under the pulsing neon grid lights. "All right, orange juice," Angel rasped, his voice dropping into a tough, professional tone as he leveled all four weapons directly at Goku's chest. "I don't know what kind of weird workout routine you're running, but down here we don't play by sports rules. I'm going to fill that pretty jumpsuit of yours with enough lead to sink a yacht, so you better start moving those big legs of yours." Goku didn't draw a weapon, nor did he shift his weight into a defensive block. He simply raised his hands, a massive, thrilled grin splitting his face as he looked at the four-armed spider demon. "Wow, 4 arms? That's incredible. I fought a guy named Tyne who could grow extra arms, but you're born with them. This is gonna be so cool. Come on, show me what those little metal toys can do." Angel Dust didn't hesitate. He pulled all 4 triggers simultaneously, unleashing a deafening, continuous torrent of high-velocity gunfire that filled the narrow space of the neon arena with a blinding haze of pink muzzle flashes and smoking brass casings. Hundreds of rounds tore through the air, creating a solid wall of kinetic destruction aimed squarely at the Saiyan. However, what happened next caused Angel's jaw to drop so low it practically hit his chest. Goku didn't even bother to dodge. His physical reflexes were so immense that he simply raised his left hand, his fingers moving in a hyperspeed, invisible blur that looked like a solid shield of flesh. With a series of crisp, metallic clicks, Goku caught every single incoming bullet out of midair, collecting them effortlessly in his palm like a handful of loose pebbles. He stopped moving, his grin never fading, and casually tossed the crumpled lead spheres onto the neon floor, where they rolled away with a tiny clatter. "Man, these are pretty fast, but they don't really have any weight behind them," Goku chuckled, completely unbothered. "You gotta put your full body weight into the swing, even when you're using tools. Here, let me show you how to throw a real punch." VAGGIS Angelic Spear. From behind the spectator barrier, Vaggi's single eye widened in absolute horror as she watched a common sinner's ammunition bounce off the human skin like rain off a glass pane. She knew instantly that this was no ordinary mortal. This was an existential threat to the hotel's safety. "Angel, get out of there now!" Vaggi screamed, her voice cutting through the residual smoke of the gunfire. She turned to Charlie, her expression desperate. "Charlie, Alastor has lost his mind. If that human unleashes whatever power he's hiding, he won't just destroy the lobby. He'll tear the hotel down to the foundation. I have to neutralize him before he gets serious." With a fierce battle cry, Vaggi slammed the butt of her silver spear against the floor, her angelic energy flaring in a brilliant, cold white light that bypassed Alastor's barrier restrictions through the pure, holy nature of her weapon. She leaped into the arena, her gray hair streaming behind her like a comet trail as she intercepted the space between Goku and a stunned Angel Dust. Vaggi dropped into a flawless, elite military stance, her silver spear spinning in a precise, deadly wheel of light before locking into a thrusting position aimed directly at Goku's throat. The weapon hummed with a pure high-frequency resonance that was explicitly designed to permanently terminate immortal souls. "I don't know what kind of god or demon sent you here, human," Vaggi hissed, her eye burning with an intense, unyielding resolve. "But I am the protector of this hotel, and I will not let you hurt Charlie or anyone else. This spear is forged from pure angelic iron. It doesn't care about your muscle mass or your speed. It cuts through everything." Goku's expression shifted, his smile softening into an expression of deep, genuine respect as he analyzed the bright, clean, cold white light radiating from the tip of her spear. He could feel that this weapon carried a completely different fundamental rule than the guns or the Shark Demon shotguns he had encountered earlier. It was a weapon that possessed absolute lethality. "Wow," Goku said softly, sliding his left foot back into a classic, disciplined turtle school martial arts stance. "That weapon, it's amazing. The energy on it is so sharp it's practically cutting the air before you even swing. All right, lady, I can tell you're a real warrior. I won't hold back my defense against that." Vaggie lunged forward with a speed that blurred her silhouette across the neon punk grid, executing a dazzling, hyper-precise sequence of thrusts and slashes aimed at Goku's vital points. The silver spear hissed through the air, leaving thin, glowing white lines in its wake that cut through the ambient green magic of the room. Yet, no matter how fast or how accurately Vaggie struck, Goku remained exactly one step ahead. He didn't use his hands to block the angelic iron. Instead, he utilized a series of micro-dodges, shifting his torso by mere millimeters, his orange gi rustling as the silver tip missed his skin by the thickness of a single hair. To the spectators, it looked as though Goku was effortlessly dancing through a storm of silver lightning, his movements perfectly synchronized with the rhythm of her attacks. "Your form is incredible," Goku praised mid-combat, his voice completely steady as he ducked beneath a horizontal decapitation strike. "Your balance is perfect, and you don't waste any energy at all, but you're relying too much on the weapon's magic to do the work for you. You gotta let your own spirit lead the strike like this." With a lightning-fast flick of his index finger, Goku tapped the flat side of the spear blade, sending a tiny, controlled vibration down the shaft that instantly disarmed Vaggie, causing the weapon to spin out of her grip and embed itself deeply into the ceiling. The Radio Demoness, SHADOWS. With Vaggie disarmed and Angel Dust completely stunned, the atmosphere inside the Neon Punk arena grew immensely heavy as Alastor's radio static reached a deafening, distorted crescendo. The emerald green lights pulsing beneath the grid floor suddenly turned a deep, sickening shade of toxic lime, and the walls of the hotel lobby began to bleed thick, ink-black shadows that pooled onto the ground like liquid tar. "Bravo! Absolute magnificent showmanship!" Alastor's voice boomed from everywhere at once, the sound of a roaring, distorted stadium crowd cheering wildly through a broken speaker system. "You possess a truly marvelous physical evasion matrix, my orange-clad friend. But let us see how your mortal reflexes fare when the very environment around you turns its predatory gaze toward your flesh." Alastor stepped directly onto the grid, his pinstriped coat billowing as his shadow detached itself from his feet, expanding into a towering, multi-legged silhouette of pure malice that blocked out the ceiling lights. With a theatrical wave of his microphone cane, the pools of liquid shadow erupted into a terrifying horde of grotesque, ink-black creatures. They had long, spindly limbs, jagged neon green teeth, and glowing red eyes that blinked in a chaotic, asynchronous rhythm. Dozens of these shadow beasts swarmed across the neon punk grid, their clawed feet leaving trails of digital decay on the floor as they rushed toward Goku from all sides. Vaggie, who had retrieved her spear from the ceiling, scrambled back behind the safety barrier with Angel Dust, watching in awe as Alastor unleashed a level of dark magic usually reserved for territory wars against rival overlords. Goku, however, simply stood his ground, a thrilled, ecstatic laugh escaping his throat as the dark horde closed the distance. "Ha ha! Now this is what I'm talking about. This feels like training inside the hyperbolic time chamber." Goku shouted, his voice ringing clear above the screeching radio static. Goku didn't channel his Kai to transform, nor did he use his signature energy blasts. He chose to engage the Shadow Horde using raw, unadulterated martial arts mastery. He became a whirlwind of kinetic destruction, his fists and boots moving so fast they created visible pocket vacuums of compressed air that shattered the ink-black monsters into harmless dust upon approach. A shadow beast lunged at his back, only for Goku to execute a flawless, no-look reverse sweep kick that dissolved the creature instantly. Another pair of monsters tried to pin his arms, but Goku simply flexed his massive shoulder muscles, the sheer physical force of his expansion generating a localized shockwave that blasted them across the arena. He was moving with such fluid, effortless grace that he didn't even break a sweat, treating an apocalyptic assault by an ancient overlord like a light afternoon exercise routine. Alastor's grin widened even further, his glowing radio dial eyes tracking Goku's movements with a manic excitement. Fascinating, simply marvelous. You don't just fight, my dear boy. You operate at a frequency that defies the structural laws of our reality. Charlie's plea for peace. The sheer scale of the conflict was rapidly reaching a point that the structural integrity of the hotel could no longer support. Even with Alastor's high-velocity magical barriers in place, the constant sonic booms from Goku's punches and the explosive bursts of Alastor's dark magic were causing the walls to crack, the beautiful wallpaper peeling away to reveal the raw, glowing red brickwork of the Pride Ring underneath. Charlie Morningstar could no longer sit idly by and watch her dream of a peaceful sanctuary be turned into a war zone for the sake of entertainment. Her golden hair violently flared with a brilliant, hot crimson fire as her true demonic heritage manifested. Two magnificent, curving horns grew from her forehead, and her eyes turned a solid, burning shade of regal red. She slammed both of her hands against the spectator barrier, her royal voice carrying an absolute uncontested authority that cut through Alastor's radio filter like a physical blade. "Alastor, stop this at once," Charlie roared, her voice echoing with the ancient power of the Lucifer bloodline. "This is not what the hotel is for. We are here to heal, not to tear each other apart for a show. Drop the barriers right now." The absolute weight of her royal command caused Alastor's shadow beasts to instantly freeze mid-motion, their ink-black forms dissolving back into the floorboards with a series of quiet, submissive hisses. Alastor himself stiffened slightly, his smile remaining fixed but his eyes shifting back to normal as he lowered his microphone cane, bowing elegantly toward the princess with a theatrical touch of his hat. "As you wish, my vision of royal grace," Alastor murmured, his radio filter dropping down to a polite, smooth baritone. With a flick of his wrist, the neon-punk grid floor rapidly shifted back into the luxurious crimson carpet, the protective barriers dissolving into harmless sparkles of pink light, and the damaged walls magically knitting themselves back together under the influence of her localized royal aura. The hotel lobby returned to its original state, save for the heavy, palpable tension lingering in the air. Goku dropped out of his fighting stance, his golden aura completely vanishing as he relaxed his muscles, looking over at Charlie with an expression of deep wonder and apology. He rubbed the back of his spiky hair, his cheerful, innocent demeanor returning in a flash. "Oh, man, I'm really sorry about that, Charlie," Goku said, his voice genuinely remorseful as he bowed his head slightly. "When I see a strong guy like that radio fellow, my body just kind of moves on its own before I can think about the mess. You've got an amazing power yourself. When you shouted just now, it felt like a giant golden shield dropped over the whole room. It was really neat." Charlie's demonic features instantly receded at his kind words, her horns shrinking back into her hair and her eyes returning to their gentle, expressive blue. She let out a long, exhausted sigh, stepping forward to pat Goku's massive arm with a warm smile. "It's okay, Goku. I know you didn't mean any harm. It's just... We work so hard here to show that conflicts can be resolved through communication and understanding, not just by throwing punches. Down here, everyone is always fighting, and I want this hotel to be the one place where they don't have to." The princess's insight. With the battle officially concluded, the residents of the hotel gathered around the long, polished mahogany dining table in the adjacent hall to process the absolute insanity of the afternoon. Nifty was frantically running around Goku's boots, using a tiny feather duster to clean off the microscopic flecks of shadow dust from his black combat boots, giggling to herself about how big and clean the new guest was. Husk sat behind the bar counter, pouring a heavy glass of cheap underworld whiskey for a still-shaken angel dust, his feline ears twitching as his cynical eyes remained fixed on Goku's massive frame. Charlie sat directly across from the Saiyan, a warm cup of herbal tea cradled in her hands as she looked at him with an expression of deep, analytical curiosity. "So, Goku," Charlie started softly, her voice carrying a gentle, maternal sincerity. "You told us earlier that you're still alive and that you're a warrior from a place called Earth, but the power you used back there, that wasn't magic, and it definitely wasn't anything holy. What exactly is that light you're carrying inside your soul?" Goku looked down at his hands, open and calloused, before looking back up at her with a clear, honest clarity that completely disarmed the cynical demons in the room. "Oh, that's just Kai," Goku explained cheerfully, leaning back in his chair with a relaxed grin. "It's the natural energy that lives inside every single living thing, plants, animals, people, everything. If you train your body and your mind hard enough, you can learn to feel it flow through you, and then you can use it to push past your limits. It's not about being scary or trying to hurt people. It's just about wanting to see how strong you can become so you can protect the things you care about. Back home, my friends and I fight some really terrifying guys who want to blow up the universe, so we have to keep training every single day to make sure everyone stays safe." Vaggie, who was sitting next to Charlie with her arms crossed, let out a low, thoughtful hum, her eye softening slightly. "Protecting people. That's a real warrior's code. It's a lot different from the reasons people fight down here. In the Pride Ring, power is only used to dominate others or steal their souls through contracts." Charlie's eyes suddenly lit up with a brilliant, hyperactive realization, her hands slamming against the table as she leaned forward with an expression of pure, ecstatic joy. "That's it. That's exactly what we're missing," she shouted, her voice full of newfound inspiration. "Goku, you don't fight out of malice or greed. Your strength comes from a place of pure, honest discipline and love for self-improvement. That is a completely redemptive mindset. If you could teach our residents how to view their internal energy the way you do, it could completely change how they approach their rehabilitation. Instead of suppressing their power out of fear of sinning, they can channel it into something beautiful and protective. Oh, please, Goku, would you be willing to run a special martial arts workshop for the hotel? It could be our biggest breakthrough yet." Goku blinked, a massive, thrilled grin splitting his face as he gave her a giant thumbs up. "Ha ha! That sounds like an awesome idea, Charlie. Training with new people is the best way to learn, and I'd love to see what kind of potential your friends have hidden inside them." The training session begins. The following morning, the tattered but resilient courtyard behind the Hazbin Hotel was transformed into an improvised outdoor dojo. The sky above the Pride Ring was its usual shade of deep, oppressive crimson, with the massive white pentagram glowing faintly in the distance. But the atmosphere inside the walled courtyard was filled with an entirely new, vibrant energy. Goku had stripped off his heavy orange overshirt, standing in his dark blue undershirt that highlighted his incredible, godlike physical conditioning. Across from him stood the hotel's resident crew, a deeply skeptical Angel Dust, a highly focused Vaggie holding a standard wooden training staff, a confused Husk who had been dragged away from his poker table, and Charlie, who was wearing a pair of adorable, oversized red boxing gloves out of pure enthusiasm. Alastor watched from the shade of a twisted iron gazebo, his grin never fading as he leaned on his cane, eager to see how the Saiyan would manipulate the souls of his subjects. "All right, everyone, the first thing we need to do is forget about using your magic or your weapons for a second," Goku announced, his voice carrying clearly across the stone courtyard as he dropped into a simple, perfectly balanced stance. "Kai doesn't care about how fancy your tools are. It only cares about the connection between your heart and your physical center, gravity. I want everyone to close their eyes, take a deep breath, and try to feel the natural heat vibrating right beneath your chest line. Don't force it out like an attack. Just let it sit there like a warm pool of water." Angel Dust snorted, his lower arms crossing while his upper arms rested on his hips. "A warm pool of water? Honey, the only thing sitting beneath my chest line is 3 cups of espresso and a deep-seated regret from 1947. This is ridiculous." Yet, despite his snark, Angel closed his eyes and took a deep breath, his long white ears twitching as he attempted to follow the instruction. Goku walked between the lines of his students with a patient, encouraging smile, gently adjusting their postures with his hands. He tapped the back of Angel's heel, sliding it back a few inches. "Lock your rear foot into the ground line at a 45-degree angle, Angel. If your foundation is loose, your energy just leaks out into the air before you can use it. He moved over to Vaggie, lightly pressing her shoulders down to relieve her intense muscular tension. You're holding your breath, Vaggie. A real warrior needs to be as fluid as water until the exact microsecond of impact. Trust your natural balance. As his students began to adjust their bodies according to the fundamental laws of martial arts, a remarkable shift began to occur within the courtyard. The ambient air, usually thick with the heavy, chaotic scent of sulfur and dark magic, began to steady, a soft, localized breeze of pure kinetic pressure clearing away the red dust from the scent. One tiles. For the first time in their afterlives, these lost souls weren't fighting out of fear or hatred. They were learning the absolute peace of self-control. Alastor's insidious trial. The relative peace of the training session was not destined to last, especially with the radio demon watching from the sidelines. To Alastor, the concept of peaceful self-improvement was a direct contradiction to the chaotic, predatory nature of hell, and he could not resist the urge to inject a taste of absolute, unadulterated reality into the Saiyan's little experiment. As Goku was demonstrating a basic forward thrust to Charlie, the shadows beneath the iron gazebo suddenly expanded with a violent, static-laced screech. Alastor's microphone cane hummed with a brilliant, toxic emerald green light, and the ground beneath the courtyard began to violently rupture, splitting into deep, glowing fissures that oozed raw, corruptive dark energy. "Oh, how delightfully tender!" Alastor's voice crackled through the air, sounding like a broken vinyl record scratching at high speed. But let us see how your little students maintain their inner peace when faced with the absolute, agonizing weight of their own damned sins. From the glowing green fissures erupted a trio of massive, ancient nightmare phantoms, colossal, multi-eyed entities made of pure, condensed underworld agony that Alastor had chained to his soul during his early days of slaughtering overlords. The phantoms let out a synchronized, high-frequency scream that instantly shattered the stone walls of the courtyard, sending a wave of pure psychic terror rippling through the air. Angel Dust instantly fell to his knees, his hands clutching his head as the dark magic forced him to relive his most traumatic memories of his time under Valentino's abusive contract. Vaggie's vision blurred with images of her past failures in the angelic military, her training staff slipping from her trembling fingers. Charlie staggered back, her crimson demonic eyes flaring, as she struggled to maintain her emotional balance against the overwhelming wave of absolute despair. Alastor chuckled, his silhouette stretching across the entire courtyard like a giant, grinning specter. "You see, Son Goku, in this world, strength is built on the suffering of others. You cannot teach peace to creatures who are structurally forged from damnation." Goku's expression instantly darkened, the playful, innocent, childlike demeanor completely vanishing from his face, as his legendary warrior spirit took full, uncontested control of his mind and body. The air surrounding his frame turned incredibly hot and heavy, compressing the ambient dark magic into a tight, vibrating bubble of pure kinetic anticipation. He stepped directly in front of his fallen students, his boots crunching firmly into the shattered stone floor as he leveled a fierce, intensely focused gaze at the towering nightmare phantoms. "Alastor, you really don't get it, do you?" Goku said, his voice dropping into a quiet, resonant baritone that carried the absolute weight of a god. "Strength isn't about hiding behind old nightmares or forcing people to be afraid. True strength is about finding the will to stand up and break through those walls, no matter how dark it gets. Let me show you what happens when you try to push a Saiyan past his limits." The cinematic Super Saiyan finale. Goku roared, a deep, earth-shattering sound that vibrated through the absolute molecular core of the Pride Ring, causing the red sky above the Hazbin Hotel to turn a violent, shifting shade of neon yellow. Within a single microsecond, a blinding, brilliant explosion of radiant gold energy erupted from his body like a newborn star, completely vaporizing Alastor's green fissures and clearing the psychic terror from the air in an instant. Goku's spiky black hair violently snapped upward, turning a brilliant, glowing golden color as his eyes shifted to a piercing, neon emerald green that radiated absolute divine authority. He had achieved Super Saiyan. The sheer, unpowered kinetic pressure wave of his transformation sent a massive, visible shockwave rippling across the entire metropolitan area, blowing the roof completely off the iron gazebo and forcing Alastor to step back by 3 paces, his dapper suit rustling violently in the golden wind. Hovering effortlessly a few inches above the shattered courtyard tiles, Super Saiyan Goku turned his fierce, glowing emerald eyes toward the trio of towering nightmare phantoms. He didn't drop into a defensive stance. He simply raised his right hand, his golden aura flaring with a magnificent, crackling density that illuminated the entire block like a second sun. With a single, textbook straight punch toward the empty air in front of him, Goku executed a basic kinetic vacuum strike. The absolute air pressure wave tore through the courtyard like a localized sonic boom, catching the 3 massive phantoms full force and instantly vaporizing their corruptive, multi-eyed forms into harmless gray pixels before they could even utter a final scream. The path of his strike left a perfectly smooth, scraped-clean lane through the stone tiles, completely erasing every trace of Alastor's dark magic from the environment. Goku spun around in the air, his golden aura casting long, heroic reflections over the faces of the hotel residents who were watching from the ground in absolute, breathless wonder. Charlie, Vaggie, and Angel Dust stood completely frozen, their eyes wide as saucers as they felt the immense, gentle, and utterly pure warmth radiating from the golden god above them, a power that carried absolutely 0 malice, 0 sin, and 0 hatred. Goku landed lightly on his boots, his golden hair gently swaying as his radiant aura receded, a warm, reassuring smile returning to his face as he rubbed the back of his neck with a chuckle. "Hugh, sorry about that, everyone. I had to use a bit of my real power to clear out those big spooky guys," Goku said cheerfully, his voice breaking the stunned silence of the courtyard. "But hey, look at you guys. You didn't run away, and your center gravity stayed perfectly locked during the blast. That means your training is already working. Who's ready to go inside and get some breakfast? I'm absolutely starving." Charlie simply stared at him, a massive, ecstatic tear of pure joy rolling down her cheek as she realized that her dream of true, redemptive strength was standing right in front of her.